I'm Jen Schiffer. I'm the community engineer at Glitch.com here at Fog Creek. Glitch is the friendly community where you'll build the app of your dreams. And today I'm here talking with Sydette Harry, editor-at-large at the Corolla Project. And we're going to talk a lot about community and what she's doing in that sphere. So you are editor-at-large at the Corolla Project.
And editor of Mozilla.
And editor of Mozilla.
Editor network Mozilla, yeah.
Awesome. So what does that mean?
So I'm responsible at the editor-at-large at Corolla. I started as the community lead. So I was responsible for research and looking into how you put together and describe communities specifically around journalism. We were started as a partnership between the New York Times, the Washington Post, Mozilla, and the Knight Foundation. And it originally started with how do we make better comments? And one of the things we came up with is after we started doing our research and planning is that comments aren't singular. Comments are a reflection of communities. So you need better, if you want to have better comments, you have to have better communities around journalism. And now I'm now moved down to editor-at-large, so how do we talk about and do some of our research? And with Mozilla, trying to build that journalistically into a foundation. So how do we make a community of people who care about internet health? And coming from Corolla, how do you make a community about people who care about internet journalism and journalism in general? And what are the things and the guides that you need to make this work? What are the things that work for communities? And basically being in the archives and being in the crates and going to the meetings and going, let's do this thing. And the slogan we have for Corolla Project ended up being, because journalism needs everyone. And one of the things that is, I loathe to use it, but the evangelization is getting people to think about projects, specifically within tech, that need communities. Whatever you're building needs a community because you need more than one person.
When did the Corolla Project get started and why and how?
It was originally thought about in 2000, I think 12 or 13. Sasha Koren, Aaron Pillenhofer, various people from the Washington Post and the New York Times looked at the comments and went, this is bad. And what would we need to build tools around the comments? Because it's a very tech thing. Let's build a tool. And as it got forward, Greg Barber, who was in charge of partnerships, we started looking at that this needs to be an interdisciplinary thing. You cannot build your way out of social, cultural problems. You actually have to look at their roots and examine what they are. And they hired Andrew Lazowski, who was our project lead, the general. And then I was added as the community lead, and the goal was, so we're going to create guides. Because it's great too, what happens a lot is people ship out tech, and the tech will fix it, and there is an algorithm that nobody understands. And that is the fixture, but nobody knows how to use the thing, how to adopt the things. And also starting to think about what works in communities and how you bring people on, and where are the places we can talk about that. And that led us, I think, in a lot of places that I don't think people traditionally look for in tech about when they're thinking about communities. So sports, theater of the oppressed, Augusto Boal was a big one for us, museum curation, all of that. Like, how do you really, when you want to bring people together to be together, how do you deal with that?
So I have worked with news sites before, and when the comments were bad, which happens quite quickly, one of the options was let's get rid of comments. And I know some sites have done that, but why is that problematic? To just get rid of comments entirely? Why would you put the work into keeping commenting there?
I think that's a common misconception that people have, is that people always, because we started as a comments platform, people always go, oh, you always want people to keep comments. No, there are some places when we talk to them about, please close your comments. You are not about this life. You are not about to put in this work. Please close these comments. The issue that often came up with this is that there was a close the comments, there wasn't a, so how are we going to connect with our community? How are we going to help people talk to each other? How are we going to get feedback? Is that an email? Is that a poll? Is that a post? And when you are producing content for people, and more, let's be blunt, when your business is based on the content people produce for you, your comments, your tweets, your posts on Instagram, Snapchat, all of that, how are people able to tell you what they need? How are they able to see that you were listening? How are they able to feel heard? And those conversations didn't happen. It's kind of, it's the version of when you're told to clean your room and you just start shoving things under the bed. And after a while, if you don't actually clean the room, the bed just starts lifting. That's what the problem was. Because for some things, you don't need comments. There are certain issues where if you're holistically considering your community, you don't need to constantly expose people to how terribly other people think of them. But what you do need is a way for communities and people to connect, and also more importantly, correct you in how you are handling them.
You have the guidelines, you have talk, and you have ask. Can you tell me about talk and ask?
Talk is the comment box. So how you moderate comments, where you put things in, how do you generate those? Ask is our first product. And that was the one, I think, and it was very important for us to start with, and people were very confused by it, is this is how you collect users to generate content and submissions and make polls and get things. And there was a fourth product that just kind of built into Talk that allows you to like look for things and search for things as you moderate. So that's on the moderation end. But it comes from, one of the beliefs is that the best way to have people be interested in you is to be interested in them. And one of the things that journalism, I think, has failed continually at, and is still failing at in a lot of ways, is how are you showing people that you are interested in what they do and interested in how they ask, and actually actively soliciting the truth about their lives. And most people were telling us they were using Google Forms or SurveyMonkey, and these are all great things, but they are not for a journalistic workflow. They're not for text. They are for large data aggregation. So you wanted something that kind of cut and then put it into the way a journalist would work, and allowed you to contact people and allowed you to preserve identities and identify personal identifying information, because these are the things that journalists do with the people. And it's how do you create a tool that helps people better in a workflow. You want to recognize that, and you can do something with a text field that you can't do with a cell. So that was what Ask was for, and it's actually been used really well. One of our most recent projects was a discussion about race in Boston, and there have been various responses to different parts of it. But one of the things people were so receptive to was the ability to be able to tell their story and get feedback and not feel like telling their story was preparation for battle. And that is so often, especially for the most marginalized. If you want to tell the truth, you've got to prepare for battle. And with something like Ask is you get to contribute, you get to tell the truth, and if you want to go forward, you can. But you also get to do the work of verification and all the things that are important to journalism, and protect your sources and protect your community.
At least in the open source community, you and I both are greatly involved in open source communities. We have dealt with things like licensing, and now codes of conduct for projects are a thing. Like the Talk project has a code of conduct and the Apache license. And for Glitch, we're trying to put our best foot forward and lead in with being a friendly community. And so we're trying to build tools to allow that. So we've added a feature to allow you to add a code of conduct, allow you to add a license fairly easily. But we know that that's just the first step. What are some things that we can learn from physical, real-world communities in like tech communities? Besides, like code of conducts have existed. Every mall in New Jersey has a code of conduct at the door. You know what I mean? Like you're not supposed to rob or hurt people. Like you go on a bus and it's like—
We just showed our age, malls. What are those? Everybody's like,
I'm a Jersey girl now, so. But you know, what else can we be doing? You know, for example, listening to our users. Like, what should we be doing to build tech to give those protections to our users?
One thing that's really important to me whenever people talk about codes of conduct, and I love Open News, SourceCon, their codes of conduct are amazing, but codes of conduct are almost always talked about in this way of how do we want not people to not behave? Like don't. And think of it as a do. What do you expect people to do when you come in? And this is where I do the terrible thing that I'm not supposed to do, but I was an athlete in school, and forgive me, but it's kind of like, if you play a sport, you do not expect that you will always get away uninjured. That's just not how that game works. But you are made aware of what is and is in bounds, and you are indoctrinated into a culture, and that culture can be toxic or problematic. But you know when you hit the field, that's where the goal is. This is how we'll choose the time. And a lot of times when you go into comments and other places, that's not part of it. They don't include what do you do? How do you do it? Where's the spaces? And that is what I think a lot of tech needs to start doing is people think the solution is tech when tech is the tool people will use to create the solution.
It's the medium.
So, yes. So how do you get people to, how do you want people to be in that medium? And think of that way. As well as you should have a code of conduct. I no longer think this is a discussion no more. Even if you don't have it officially, unofficially you end up with a code of conduct. So have one. And be comfortable with it being malleable. It is something that you're responsible for, and you might not get it right, but you have these steps and you have them in place, and this is how you will activate them. And you're going to, and this is what you want from the community. Not just this is the thing we have to do, or don't be a jerks, guys. That's nice, but it's not, to me, that's not where the warmth is. The warmth is we're here to do a thing, and we're trying to do the thing of our best ability, and this is how we want to help you know what the best looks like.
Yeah. I think that there is, in a lot of tech codes of conduct, sort of are like TLDR, don't be a jerk. Because I feel like a lot of people in the tech community need to be explicitly told that being a jerk is a bad thing. Because again, like we see the leaders in this industry and the people who've made the apps that we use every day, and they're known for, being jerks, and everyone's like, oh, I want to be like that guy,
And there's also everyone's definition of a jerk isn't always the same, and especially for technology where we're trying to build for a world. We've got to try and think about, so how do we make it comfortable for people to let us know whether or not we're successful at what we're doing? And that is what I think codes of conduct are, and that's about what communities are, is how do we come to actions that achieve what we want, that in ways that center the people we want in the room, that we all can participate in. And it's not just everybody who believes in the same way, because your version of jerk and my version of jerk may be different, but but we can have a complicit discussion of, this is how I'd like to be addressed. Please do not do this and that and that. We can have that, and we should have spaces in our communities, and you should have a place to be able to talk about that and have a place where you've decided on that.
I feel like when it comes to thinking about humans, which is what we've ultimately forgotten about in tech, that we're building software for humans, a lot of people, working as a consultant, accessibility was always an afterthought, if a thought at all, for projects. And it's like, well, it seems bad for business to allow people to be jerks in your community and drive other people away. It seems bad for business to not build tech that everyone can use.
We are, and and my first question is always, wait, hold on. Who's we, fam? Who is the we? Let's start there. Who do you mean by we? People. Which people? People who does everybody have a phone? Is this how far in a legacy phone is this? Da, 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 da. And there's a whole thing that goes through, and very often one of the first things with Coral we would do is go, so what is your community for? Who is your community? And a lot of people would just kind of go, oh, of course it's our readers. Are you sure? Or is it your subscribers? Or is it subscribers who will comment? And it's like, that's not an easy question.
Or is it your advertisers?
Come on now. And that's not an easy question, and people like to pretend it is, because it makes things simpler, and there needs to be an admission that it's not simple.
Yeah. And I think that, I've recently learned that you need user personas. You need to have an idea of who your users are, and you'll learn that there are other people slipping into the woodwork that have been using your technology in a different way than you had expected, and you have to see that as an exciting challenge to meet, and not well, we're not going to really cater to them because that doesn't really help us hit our bottom line. They're an edge case, and I feel like we have to go more into this. Yeah, exactly, edge cases being a fake idea. Yeah.
Because everybody's, Sarah Waxabacher's Design for Real People, and I love it, is this idea that there's no such thing as an edge case, there's stress cases. Because depending on where you are in a day, everybody's an edge case. If you are flustered and nervous, you will miss information. If you are looking for something, if you don't have access to something, if you lose your phone, if you do this, if you do that, you are going to need something. And if you design for that in the beginning, you don't sit there and go, oh, holy crap, what happens when people don't have broadband? There's a lot of stuff now, they're like, oh, we didn't understand that people don't have broadband. And I'm like, because you all are in San Francisco. Nobody went down to Kentucky.
Yeah, when your sort of user sample is the people who share a co-working space with you, like, is that actually really like a cross sample that's significant at all with like the rest of your users?
And you need to present your business in that model. I mean, if you can make your money off of just the kinds of people like the people who are in your co-working space, that's a good business model. The problem is when you say it's for everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that we need to catch ourselves on in tech is that you can be building a tool for a small set of people. That's totally fine, but you can't jump on a table and be like, we're saving the world, unless like you're actually putting the work in to try to save the world. But if you're building an app that is for a specific group of people.
And who are you saving the world from? And once again, who's we?
Exactly, yeah.
Who is we?
So what is the future of the Corolla Project? What is in the works? What can we see in the future?
So I can be very proud of my team. They are now in 23 newspapers and working on other projects and integrating with other people and constantly developing and iterating, and it's open source. So people are joining in. It is plugin adaptable, so people pull in plugins to do polls and use and measure civility and identify trolling and heat map comments. And it's all open.
I was going to ask you what your hopes and dreams were, because on the Glitch team, we always like to talk to each other about what our hopes and dreams with like our work and like in general. But a lot of that sounds like really good hopes and dreams and goals. And we think of hopes and dreams not as like something that's like a pipe dream or something like that. They actually become our sort of goals
Dreaming
and
is
values.
work.
Exactly.
Dreaming is work, and this is a conversation I have with people, is that you have to have hopes and dreams, because that hopes and dreams tell you why what you want to do, why what you want is impossible right now. So I want a Ferrari. Why don't I have a Ferrari? Because I don't have the money. So you have to think about what is separating you from your dream. Now that could be you might go halfway down your dream and decide you don't want it no more. But if you want it, it has to become something that you talk about. And too often you get this, oh, well, that's you're such a dreamer. And I'm like, yes, and I'm also a worker. These things aren't mutually exclusive. In terms of hopes, I mean, the apple pie in the sky is that everyone not get along, but we get justice and reparations and an end to, exploitative capitalism, yada, yada, yada. It was raised by a revolutionary. But the most important thing is that we give people and we build things for people to find the best uses for their potential and give them the space to find resources that aren't given to them and continue to build a tech landscape that allows for that more than the other thing. There are things I want, but I think for me, what has been most amazing for tech is the time when I've gotten to be my best self, and I've gotten the space to be my best self. And I think that to me is a better goal than a lot of the larger ones. It's like, am I giving the space? Am I giving the tools? Am I giving the resources for people to be their best selves? And if they don't want to be their best selves, I got that. I'll back myself up. I'm good on that. But with journalism and all of these things, especially through Corolla and Codes of Comment, is how do we provide the resources and tools for people to do that and continue to build them in a way that allows them to have good examples to build for themselves? The biggest hope and dream is that it stops being a couple of people in a room talking about a thing, or we're going to save it, and it starts being the world looking at how do we want to communicate with each other? How do we want to actually deal with this space as part of our lives? And that become the focus of what we talk about with tech as a tool in the world, and not as the kind of 600 guys making way too much money in small sectors of the world, but more like, who are the people that are putting pedometers on cows and it's helping save the dairy industry? Who are the peoples that are doing micro lending so that my friend's family business for 30 years gets to stay on its feet? What is the newspaper that started up in my personal neighborhood because the kids didn't believe that they were being covered, but they had Adobe, a Mac, and an internet connection, so they have a newspaper? How do we make those moments possible? And how do we make them possible with as many disciplines and things as we can? That's my ongoing dream. Like, it doesn't have a close. Like, it's like, okay, we got here. We can do better. Can we do it again? Can we do it again? That's the thing. And I actually enjoy it. I really do. So that to me is the hope of tech. And that's the flip side of the, okay, I really want to fight everyone. But there is something amazing when you see someone go, look, guys, I made my first I made my first zine, I made my first song. And you watch people have this relationship with it. It goes from, this is a thing that other people do, to this is part of my life. And if we can get as many people as possible to that moment, super excited.
Yeah, I like the idea of the future being thinking, oh, look how far we've come, not, oh God, what have we done? And like right now we're at like, oh God, what have we done? And so yeah, my hopes and dreams are aligned with yours there. But I do want to say thank you for thank you for coming here. Thank you for your work on the Corolla Project and at Mozilla, and thank you for fighting, because that's where we need to be at right now. And
we always talk about love as this soft and beautiful, wonderful emotion, and I say that is true. But the other side about love is, it's defense. If you love something, you want it to continue living, and there is no greater love than ensuring someone's survival. And sometimes ensuring someone's survival is a fight, and it's very uncomfortable. We all get, and I think sometimes if you are really met with someone that does not want to ensure the survival of what you love, you have to fight. Okay, we can make up after a fight, but if we gotta have a fight, gotta have a fight.